Summer of 44. June. Belarus. Lieutenant Sokolov's crew haven't slept in 3 days. Not almost 3. Exactly 3. 72 hours of continuous movement, combat, marching, and more combat. Prokhorov, the driver, is operating on autopilot. His hands work the levers instinctively, his eyes open but staring through the vision slit at a point that doesn't exist. Zhuravlev, the gunner, has caught himself twice in the last hour nodding off with his eyes glued to the sight. The loader, Batko, 21 years old, the youngest, stopped talking yesterday. He just works. Grabs a shell, rams it home, slams the breech. Mechanically. Like a machine. Human reaction time drops by a third after 72 hours without sleep. In combat, that third is everything. It's the difference between the man who fires first and the man being carried away in a ground sheet. Sokolov knows this. He doesn't think about it, he just knows. And that knowledge sits in his head like a stone with nowhere to go.
An order comes over the radio. The battalion commander's voice is dry and toneless, as always. Sokolov, move out in 40 minutes. Objective, the bridge at Lesnoy. Take it before the reserves arrive. Execute. 40 minutes. Then more kilometers of marching. Then a fight. Then, if they're lucky, marching again. Operation Bagration has been underway for several days, and Soviet forces are tearing through the German lines so fast that HQ can't keep the maps updated. Army Group Center is collapsing. The Germans are retreating, lashing out, throwing up roadblocks and ambushes at forest edges, whatever they can scrape together. The tank crew's job is to keep them from digging in. Don't let them breathe. Drive them. Break them. Don't stop. That is the doctrine. Denying the enemy a pause means denying them the chance to rebuild their defense. In theory, it's beautiful.
In practice, it means Prokhorov can no longer feel the fingers on his left hand from the constant pressure on the lever. And Sokolov last ate 6 hours ago and can't remember what it was. The tank is idling in cover behind a tree line. A T-34-85. New by the standards of this war. A 3-man turret, commander, gunner, loader. It sounds like a technical detail, but to Sokolov, it means one thing. He's no longer tethered to the site. The old tank forced the commander to juggle 2 jobs, managing the crew and hunting targets through the site simultaneously. It was a dead end built right into the design. Now, that dead end is gone. Now Sokolov watches through the commander's cupola and sees the whole battlefield while Zhuravlev operates the site independently. 40 minutes. Batko cracks open a tin of tushonka with a bayonet. Cold. No time or way to heat it. Eat fast, Sokolov says. Not an order, just a statement. No one answers. Batko passes the tin to Prokhorov. Prokhorov eats straight from the can without looking. Zhuravlev takes his share, chewing slowly, eyes half closed. It's not laziness. It's a body conserving every resource because it knows there's a long way to go. The smell is heavy. The stench of cordite is seared into their clothes. Neither water nor wind can touch it. Under the tarp where Prokhorov and Batko huddled last night in the mud next to the tank, there wasn't an inch of room to sleep inside. That cordite mixed with the smell of wet earth and motor oil. They didn't complain. Complaining doesn't change the position, doesn't change the mission, doesn't change a thing. Sokolov looks at the map. The bridge at Lesnoya is about 40 kilometers down a road that spends half its route in the woods. A narrow corridor. If the Germans manage to set an ambush at the forest exit, it'll be bad. If they manage to move up anti-tank artillery, it'll be very bad. If they blow the bridge, the whole operation loses its point. Bridging equipment won't arrive for hours, and by then the Germans will have dug in on the far bank. That's why. 40 minutes. That's why. Don't stop. That's why Prokhorov is eating tushonka right now without leaving the tank. How many rounds? Sokolov asks. Batko counts without looking. Habit. 56 high explosive, 14 armor-piercing. 70 rounds. For a prolonged fight, not much. For a breakthrough on the move, enough, if they're accurate. Prokhorov closes the empty tin and tosses it into the grass. He stands up. He stretches his arms, slowly, methodically, like a man preparing for heavy labor. Because that's exactly what it is. The heaviest labor there is. Start it up in 30, Sokolov says. Prokhorov nods. He walks to the tank, climbs onto the hull, opens the driver's hatch, disappears inside. 30 minutes of relative silence. Somewhere beyond the horizon, artillery thumps. Rarely, with pauses. Not ours, German. It sounds different, drier and sharper. Sokolov has heard it for so long he no longer consciously registers it. Just background noise. Just the soundtrack of this war that never turns off. Zhuravlev sits by the track, leaning his back against the armor. He closes his eyes. Not sleeping, just giving his eyes a rest. 20 minutes, then back to the site. Batko stands next to Sokolov, looking in the direction they're headed. The forest is there, dark, dense summer growth. The road leads into it and vanishes. Think it's an ambush? Batko asks, quietly, almost to himself. We'll do the thinking later, Sokolov replies. Right now, we drive. Batko is silent. He nods. It's not bravado. It's just the arithmetic of war. You can't calculate everything, but stopping means handing the initiative to the enemy. And right now, initiative is worth more than any amount of caution. German reserves are moving toward the bridge. They don't have time either. Whoever gets there first decides the outcome. The engine roars. Prokhorov warms up the machine. Exhaust smoke drifts away into the foliage. Sokolov climbs onto the hull, checks the hatch, looks through the commander's cupola. The horizon is clear for now. Then he looks down at his crew. Bloodshot eyes, grey faces, hands that only stop shaking because they're too tired to shake anymore. 4 men, 1 machine, 70 rounds, 40 kilometers. Mount up. Refueling is 15 minutes that no one considers a rest. The tank sits at the edge of a dirt road. 2 soldiers from the rear echelon roll a drum of diesel. Hose, fuel port. The smell of fuel overpowers everything else. The cordite, the wet forest, and the smell of the men themselves, who haven't seen a wash basin in 3 days. Prokhorov sits on the hull and eats, or rather chews. Canned fish, cold, straight from the tin, with a spoon he keeps in his tunic pocket. He doesn't look at the contents. He just chews and swallows. The body needs fuel, just like the machine. Doesn't matter what kind. Batko stands nearby, holding his tin with both hands. He tried to eat standing up, but his hands are unsteady from exhaustion, so he presses the tin to his chest to keep from spilling the liquid. Meat and fat. Cold fat. It doesn't melt, it just slides into the stomach in a lump. "You good?" Batko asks, no one in particular. No one answers. It's not rudeness. Words are expensive when you have almost no strength left. Zhuravlev has climbed out and stands leaning against the track. His eyes are open. He's looking off to the side, where a clearing in the field is visible through the trees, where they have to go. He isn't analyzing anything. He's just looking, because if he closes his eyes for more than a second, he'll fall into a hole he won't be able to crawl out of. Last night they slept under a tarp,
right in the mud next to the track. Batko on the right, Prokhorov on the left, both wrapped in a single piece of canvas that scavenged 3 days ago from a wrecked German vehicle. Inside the tank, impossible. The ammo racks take up all the space. The seats are narrow. In the fighting compartment, you can sit, but you can't lie down. So, mud, tarp, 3 hours until dawn. 3 hours. Then again, Sokolov walks around the tank, methodically, in a circle. Checks the tracks, intact. Checks the road wheels, fine. Checks the armor, a few scratches from shrapnel on the glacis plate, shallow, not critical. Checks the gun barrel, clean. Batko managed to run a swab through it after the last fight. He stops by the turret and rests his hand on the armor. 85mm, S-53 gun. Muzzle velocity of an armor-piercing shell, 800 meters per second. At 500 meters, it punches through 100mm of armor. These aren't handbook figures. This is what stands between the crew and death. The old tank, the T-34, with the 76mm gun, couldn't touch a German Panther head-on at that same distance. You had to maneuver, hunt for the flank, waste time. And time in a duel is life. The new gun closes that gap. Not completely, but enough to give Zhuravlev a chance to fire first and hit where it counts. But the gun isn't the main thing. The main thing is the turret. The 3-man turret changed everything. In the old design, the commander sat behind the gunner and looked through the same sight. That meant one thing. While Zhuravlev was hunting a target, Sokolov was blind. While Sokolov was commanding, Zhuravlev lost his sight picture. 2 men sharing one point of focus. That wasn't tactics. It was a trap built into the metal. Now, it's different. Now Sokolov has his own commander's cupola, his own panoramic view. He sees the battlefield independently of the gunner, simultaneously, constantly. While Zhuravlev tracks a target they've already found, Sokolov is already hunting the next one, an assembly line. Not 2 men at one point, but 2 sets of eyes on one field. That's the difference between a machine that reacts and a machine that acts. Sokolov takes his hand off the armor, returns to the crew. Prokhorov, how are your hands? The driver looks at his palms, clenches and unclenches them, slowly. They're holding. Good. Hold them for another 50 kilometers. Prokhorov doesn't answer. He puts away the empty tin, climbs down from the hull and heads for the hatch. Batko finishes his food, sets the tin on the grass, looks at it for a second, empty, dented, greasy inside. Lieutenant, he says, how many of them will be there, at the bridge? We don't know, Sokolov replies. We'll find out when we get there. It's not an evasion. It's the truth. Recon reported a screening force, composition unknown. Could be infantry with anti-tank rifles, could be guns, could be nothing, if the Germans haven't managed to plug the gap yet. The probability of nothing is low. The Germans know how to hold crossings. Zhuravlev stops staring at the clearing and looks at Sokolov. Have you slept at all? He asks. No. Me neither. Pause. Doesn't matter, Zhuravlev says, and climbs back into the turret. The rear echelon troops pull the hose. The drum is empty. The tank is fueled. The driver is already inside. The engine is idling. Prokhorov didn't shut it down while refueling because there's no time left to warm it up again. Sokolov looks at his watch. 12 minutes until the march begins. He looks at his men. Batko is collecting the tins, his and Prokhorov's, stuffing them into a rucksack lashed to the armor. A small, automatic gesture of order in the middle of chaos. Sokolov notices it and says nothing. Batko is young.
He still maintains order where the adults gave up long ago. That will pass. A few more battles, and order won't matter. Only function will remain. Only hands doing what they must. Sokolov hopes Batko has a little more time before that happens. The wind comes from the west. It carries the smell of burning. Something big is on fire over there, equipment or a building, and the smoke rises in a broad gray column visible over the forest. It's not their fire. Someone else's fire, from a previous battle that's already over for those who started it. Sokolov climbs onto the hull, opens the commander's hatch, lowers himself into the turret, closes the hatch over his head, a metallic clang, familiar as the click of a bolt. Darkness. The smell of oil and metal. Instruments. The sight next to Zhuravlev. Batko takes his place at the breech. "Load AP," Sokolov says. A metallic clang. The shell enters the breech. The block slides shut. Ready. "Prokhorov, move out." The tank lurches forward. It pulls out of cover onto the dirt road. The ground is soft after the rains. The tracks bite into it confidently. The forest closes in on both sides. The road stretches ahead, straight as a sentence. 12 minutes are up. The forest ends abruptly. Just trees, 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 and then suddenly, they're gone. A field. Wide, open, with a gentle rise on the horizon. The road cuts straight through it. And there, on the rise, near a small grove, movement. Sokolov sees it through the panoramic sight before Prokhorov can even level the tank after the turn. The movement isn't peaceful. It's the frantic activity of men deploying a gun. "Halt!" Prokhorov slams on the brakes. The tank stops at the edge of the woods. They're still in the shadows, not yet visible. Sokolov counts the seconds. He stares through the panoramic sight without blinking. The grove. 3 trucks. Infantry fanning out into the ditches along the road. And a gun. 1, maybe 2. It's hard to tell through the trees. "Zhuravlev, Grove, 11 o'clock. Gun on the left edge. See it?" "I see it." Zhuravlev is already on the site. "Range 800. 800 meters is a working distance. Not close quarters, not the limit. At this range, Zhuravlev doesn't miss. "Wait for my command." Sokolov keeps watching. This is the difference. In the old tank, he'd already be choosing between commanding and aiming. Now, he only commands. Zhuravlev only aims. 2 processes running in parallel. No one in anyone's way. The Germans are finishing the deployment. They don't see the tank yet. The forest hides it. But in 30 seconds, the road will open up, and the first thing to emerge onto the field will be under direct fire. Sokolov makes his decision in 3 seconds. "Prokhorov, full speed ahead. Zhuravlev, fire on the gun as soon as we hit the open. Batko, HE immediately after the first shot." "Copy," Zhuravlev says. "On it," Batko says, already holding a shell ready. Prokhorov says nothing. He just floors it. The tank bursts out of the forest into the field. The engine roars. The tracks hammer against the hard-packed dirt. Speed builds. Open space is a risk. It's a kill zone for German sights, but it's also a field of fire for their own. Whoever fires first dictates the fight. Zhuravlev fires 3 seconds after they hit the open. The gun cracks. Powder smoke blankets the turret for a split second before the blower clears it. The shell is away. A hit. An explosion by the grove. Not exactly where it needed to be. Right of the barrel into the carriage wheel. The gun isn't destroyed, but the crew is down, scattered by the blast wave. That pause in their work is all they need. "Reloading," Batko reports. Clang. Shell in the breech. "Ready." Prokhorov keeps the hammer down. The tank doesn't slow. It charges forward, while Zhuravlev hunts the next target. This is the essence of the tactic. The tank doesn't stop to fire. It fires on the move, and while the shell is in the air, the tank is already 50 meters closer to the enemy. The German crew has to recalculate the lead. It breaks their rhythm. It buys seconds. Seconds are expensive here. "Infantry in the ditch, left," Sokolov says. "Zhuravlev, HE along the road." "I see him." The second shot. The HE shell lands perfectly, along the ditch, a bit long, but the blast covers the position. 2 men scramble out of the ditch and run back toward the grove. The others don't get up. Sokolov looks through the panoramic sight and already sees the next threat. A second gun is deploying at the right edge of the grove, one he hadn't spotted immediately. It's hidden behind bushes, but the muzzle brake glints in the sun. One more moment, and he'll be in the German gunner's crosshairs. "Prokhorov, right! Get off the axis! Zhuravlev, gun on the right, bushes by the grove, 2 o'clock." Prokhorov throws the tank to the right without hesitation. The tank veers off the road into the field. The ground is soft, the tracks biting into the topsoil, but the speed holds. The maneuver breaks the German gunner's aim. He'd already taken lead for a straight-line target, and now the target has shifted. The German gun fires. The shell passes to the left. Sokolov hears it, a short, sharp whistle, followed by a blast behind them, maybe 20 meters from the stern. "Miss," Prokhorov says, a simple statement of fact. "Zhuravlev, got him." A half-second pause. "On the way." The third shot, right into the gun position. The explosion engulfs the bushes, smoke, dirt, shattered branches. The gun goes silent. Sokolov is already looking further ahead. The trucks by the grove. One is moving. The driver is trying to bug out. The second is stationary, men with rifles jumping out of the back. "Batko, load. Ready. Zhuravlev, the truck." The fourth shot. The truck stops. The shell hits the engine block. It doesn't burst into flames immediately, but the vehicle is dead. The men from the second truck scatter, some into the grove, some back across the road. Sokolov scans the field. Organized resistance is gone. There's scattered infantry choosing between their position and their lives, and they're choosing life. Both guns are knocked out or suppressed. The road is open. "Prokhorov, back on the road. Max speed." The tank returns to the dirt road. Speed builds. The grove, with its smoking positions, recedes. 4 shots. Less than 2 minutes. This is what the new turret changed. Not the shell velocity, not the armor thickness. This. Sokolov seeing the field and commanding continuously, while Zhuravlev only aims and fires. Batko only loads. Prokhorov only drives. Each man does one thing. No one juggles. The assembly line works without stopping. In the old tank, this fight would have taken twice as long. They might have taken a shell to the flank while the commander fumbled with the sight instead of Zhuravlev. "Lieutenant," Batko says. His voice is flat, almost indifferent. 41 HE left. "Copy that." Sokolov makes a mental note. 41 HE, 14 AP. 20 kilometers to the bridge. No telling what's ahead. "Zhuravlev, how are your eyes?" Zhuravlev pulls away from the sight, blinks a few times. "They're holding." "Good. Stay sharp." These aren't words of encouragement. It's an instruction. The post-combat slump is physiological. The body exhales and demands rest. They don't have that right. Between this roadblock and the next is 20 kilometers. Maybe less. Maybe right around the next bend. Prokhorov drives in silence. The field falls behind. The road dives back into the forest. A bypassed German position slides past on the left. A trench, empty shell crates, an overturned tool chest. They left in a hurry, abandoned everything. Sokolov catches it out of the corner of his eye and wipes it from his memory. Doesn't matter. Only what's ahead matters. 20 kilometers. The bridge. Beat the reserves. The tank pushes on. The bridge appears around the bend, and all hell breaks loose. The Germans made it. Not the reserves, a screening force, but a thick one. 2 guns with a direct line of sight, infantry in trenches on both sides of the road, and somewhere beyond the bridge, armor. Sokolov sees a silhouette in the smoke. He can't tell exactly what it is, but it's there. Range, 300 meters. This isn't 800 anymore. This is point blank. Prokhorov, left! Get behind the embankment! The tank veers off the road behind an earthen berm at the shoulder. The cover is partial. The turret sticks up above the embankment, but the glacis and running gear are protected. A duel from an open position at 300 meters is a trade Sokolov doesn't want to make unless he has to. The German gun fires first. The shell hits the embankment. Dirt geysers into the air. The tank shudders, not from a hit, but from the near miss. Inside, there's a dull thud through the hull, like someone slammed a fist against the floorboards from the outside. "Everyone okay?" Sokolov asks. "Fine," Batko replies. His voice is steady.
No longer a young man's voice. The voice of a man who's stopped fearing nearby explosions because he's used to them. Zhuravlev, left gun, in the pit by the road. See the shield? I see it. 280. Fire. The turret traverses. The gun cracks. The roar inside the fighting compartment at 280 meters isn't a sound. It's a physical blow to the eardrums. The air compresses and expands in a fraction of a second. The blower clears the powder gases, but slower than they'd like. For a split second, the compartment fills with acrid smoke, and Batko coughs as he reaches for the next shell. A hit. The left gun goes silent. Reloading, Batko says to himself, the shell already sliding into the breach. It's not conversation. It's a verbalized algorithm. A way to keep the tempo when the brain is running at a third of its capacity from exhaustion. The second German gun fires. The shell shrieks across the top of the turret. A metallic scream, short and piercing. It doesn't penetrate. The ricochet zings upward. Sokolov doesn't have time to process what almost happened. He's already back on the panoramic sight. Zhuravlev, second gun, to the right, by the shed. 3 o'clock. I see it. Smoke's in the way. Level the shed. The gun fires. The shed disintegrates. A wooden shack isn't built to withstand a direct HE hit. Behind the wreckage, the gun. The crew is abandoning the position. Prokhorov, move! Across the road, straight for the bridge. Don't slow down. The tank lunges from behind the embankment. Full throttle. 300 meters of open ground to the bridge. Infantry in the trenches open up. Rifles, a machine gun. Bullets rattle against the armor like peas on a tin roof. A rapid, staccato drumming. Sokolov hears it even over the engine's roar and the ringing in his ears from the shots. Bullets on armor aren't a threat to the machine. They're a threat to the psyche. Every impact is a reminder that people outside are actively trying to kill you. The brain reacts. The body pumps out adrenaline that's almost gone. The reserves were drained 3 days ago, and what's trickling in now is foul, anxious stuff. It doesn't bring clarity, only the shakes. Batko gripped the next shell, feeling the tremor.
He tightened his hold. "Zhuravlyov, MG by the bridge," Sokolov ordered. Fire. The HE shell hammered the position near the bridge. The machine gun went silent. They were on the bridge. The tracks thundered against the wooden planks. The sound shifted from the muffled thud of the field to a sharp, hollow drumming. Below them, the river, dark, maybe 50 feet across. The bridge held. Sokolov counted the seconds. 1, 2, 3. And they were on the far bank. An APC was sitting right there. The driver tried to throw it into reverse. He was too slow. Prokhorov rammed it, not with a shell, but with the hull at full tilt. Impact. The APC was shoved off the road and into the ditch. Sokolov heard the screech of metal on metal, a sickening, intimate sound, like someone snapping bone with their bare hands. "Stop!" Prokhorov hit the brakes. The engine idled. Silence. Not a true silence. There was still firing somewhere behind them. Someone was screaming, and a machine gun let out a short burst before going dead. But here, on this bank, at this exact spot, for a few seconds, no one was shooting at them. Sokolov checked the periscope. The field beyond the bridge. The road hooked right. No movement. The German screen was shattered. Those who could run had pulled back. The rest were staying down in their holes and not getting up. The bridge was ours. He didn't think of it as a victory. He thought, the bridge is intact, the crossing is open, the next units can move through. That was it. That was the only thing that mattered right now. "Status report," he said. "Running gear's fine," Prokhorov said, his voice raspy.
"Left steering lever's a bit stiff, but it's holding."
"Gun's good," Zhuravlyov said. He pulled away from the sight and rubbed his eyes with a fist. They were bloodshot. From the smoke, the exhaustion, the sheer strain. 29 HE rounds left, 12 AP. "Batko?" Batko stayed quiet for a second. Then, "Solid." He was clutching 2 empty casings he hadn't had time to toss in the heat of the fight. They were scorching. He didn't even notice. His fingers had lost all sense of temperature. He'd been handling white-hot metal for too long. It was a furnace inside the fighting compartment. Heat from the gun, the engine, and 4 bodies crammed into a steel box. It was June, and inside this armored coffin, it was well over 100 degrees. Sweat was a constant stream. Their tunics were soaked through. There was no water. Everyone's canteens had gone dry an hour ago. This wasn't up for discussion. It was just a fact of life that existed alongside the battle.
Zhuravlyov pulled off his tanker's helmet.
He rested it on his knees.
He sat like that for a few seconds, helmetless, in a silence that wasn't really silent. Then he slid it back on.
"How many of them were there?" he asked no one in particular. "Enough," Sokolov replied. Static crackled over the radio, then the CO's voice. "Sokolov, you got the bridge?" "Affirmative. Hold the crossing. Main force arrives in 20 minutes. Do not abandon your position." "Copy that." 20 minutes. Sokolov looked at the river, the far bank, the road they had just come down. There was still a firefight going on back there, single shots ringing out as the infantry mopped up the positions. Our guys would be here soon. For now, it was just 4 men and a machine with a smoking barrel, sitting on a riverbank in the middle of June 44. Prokhorov popped the driver's hatch. He leaned out. He looked up at the sky, just the sky. Taking a breath, Sokolov didn't stop him. 2 minutes. He could have that. The hit came without warning.
Sokolov heard it before he even registered it.
Not an explosion, not a shot, but a thud. Short, blunt, like someone outside had just slammed a sledgehammer into the turret. The metal rang. The tank shuddered. A German rifleman with an anti-tank rifle had opened up from the right bank, a concealed position in the brush that Sokolov had missed. The round hit at a sharp angle, not head-on, but a glancing blow to the side of the turret. The armor held. The 45 millimeters of side armor on a T-34-85 at a sharp angle, the round ricocheted. Pure physics. An impact angle of less than 30 degrees meant the kinetic energy just skidded off without penetrating. But armor isn't a monolith. Inside the fighting compartment, the impact caused the inner layer of steel to flake off. It's called spalling, a phenomenon you can't see from the outside, but it kills everything inside. Tiny shards of the armor's inner surface fly through the compartment at high velocity. Not the enemy shell, but the tank's own steel turned into a weapon against its crew. Prokhorov let out a cry. Just once. Short. Then, silence. "Prokhorov," Sokolov said. "Shoulder," the driver replied. His voice was steady, almost surprised. "Left shoulder." "How bad?" A pause. Prokhorov moved his arm, checking. "It's bleeding. I've got the levers." Batko was already reaching for the first aid kit. It was mounted on the wall of the fighting compartment, left of the breach. He snapped it open, pulled out a bandage. He passed it to Prokhorov through the bulkhead. The driver was a reach away, so he handed it over Zhuravlyov's shoulder. "Can you patch yourself up?" Batko asked. "Later," Prokhorov said. "Now," Sokolov ordered. This wasn't about being nice. It was a calculation. A driver with an untreated wound loses blood. Blood loss means a drop in blood pressure. A drop in pressure, on top of 3 days of exhaustion, means passing out at the wheel. And then the tank goes nowhere. Prokhorov took the bandage. He pressed it against the wound, not even unwrapping it, just jamming it against his tunic. Right hand on the lever, left hand on the bandage. "I've got it," he said. Sokolov was already back at the periscope. Right bank, brush by the water. Wherever that round came from, there was a gun or a self-propelled mount. The muzzle smoke hadn't cleared yet. A faint, whitish cloud over the bushes, about 150 yards upstream. "Zhuravlyov, right bank. Brush by the water, 150 yards upstream. White smoke." "I see it. Load AP." The breech clangs shut. Batko was working one-handed. He was still holding the bandage for Prokhorov until the driver could take over. It was awkward, slower than usual. But the shell slid into the breech. "Up!" Fire. The brush on the right bank disintegrated. Behind it, a flash, then thick black smoke. A hit on the ammo or the fuel? You only get smoke that color from one of those. The gun didn't fire again. Sokolov listened to the silence. 10 seconds. 20. No more shots. The position was neutralized. "Batko," Zhuravlyov said. "Give it here." He took the bandage from Batko and handed it directly to Prokhorov through the hatch. Prokhorov pressed the wound with his own hand now, his right, awkwardly, because the wound was on his left shoulder. His tunic was soaked with blood. The dark stain was spreading, but slowly. The shard hadn't gone deep. Muscle, not bone, not an artery. "You gonna make it?" Zhuravlyov asked. "I'll manage," Prokhorov said. Out here, that word meant a lot. Manageable wasn't good or bad. It meant, I'm working. It meant, we don't stop. Sokolov looked at the river. The crossing was open. A few more minutes until the main force arrived. The position was holding. But what just happened sat in the back of his mind as a cold, hard fact. The shell didn't penetrate the armor, and yet the crew was still wounded. It was an important lesson. Not for now. For later. If there is a later. Unbroken armor isn't a guarantee. It's a reprieve. One hard enough hit at the right angle, and the machine kills its own from the inside with its own steel. Batko snapped the first aid kit shut. He sat back in his seat. He looked at his hands. The right one was covered in Prokhorov's blood. The left was clean. He stared at the difference for a few seconds, then wiped his right hand on his pant leg. "Lieutenant?" he said quietly. "Yeah?" "We stopped." "I know." "We can't afford to stop." "I know." Sokolov checked the periscope one more time. Right bank, clear. Left bank, clear. The road past the bridge, empty. The German infantry had either pulled back or dug in deep. No new threats. For now. But for now carries a lot of weight out here. "Prokhorov, can you drive?" The driver was silent for a second. He gripped both levers. The left arm obeyed. It hurt, but it worked.
"I can."
"Then hold the position. Don't move until our guys pass through." It was a compromise. Sitting by the bridge made them a target for anything else that might crawl out of the woodwork. Pushing forward with a wounded driver and no support was a bigger risk. The objective was met. The bridge was secure. Now, they wait. Zuravyov leaned back in his seat. He closed his eyes. He wasn't sleeping, just shutting out everything he didn't need to see. It was still a furnace inside. Sweat stung his eyes. The smell of cordite, hot metal, and blood, it had all bled together into one scent you couldn't pull apart anymore. Batko looked at the breach. The inner layer of armor on the left wall of the turret, where the hit landed, was mangled. A few small craters. That's where the shards had come from. He ran a finger along the edge of one. Sharp, like a razor. "Could have been worse," he said softly. No one answered, because it was the truth, and there was nothing left to say. Prokhorov kept his hands on the levers. The bleeding under the bandage was slowing down. The pressure was helping. His shoulder was on fire. He didn't think about it. He thought about the road in front of the tank, the habit of a driver who keeps his eyes forward even when he's standing still. "Lieutenant," he said, "go ahead. Thanks for not stopping earlier." Sokolov didn't answer. It wasn't because words weren't needed. It was because he knew Prokhorov wasn't talking about today's fight. He was talking about everything. The 3 days without sleep, the cold rations, the tarps in the mud, the relentless forward momentum that doesn't let you stop and realize just how heavy it all is. Moving forward is the only thing that keeps you from feeling the cost. In the distance, beyond the trees on the left bank, a growing roar. Engines. Lots of them. Our guys. Sokolov looked through the periscope. Tanks were rolling out of the forest onto the road. A column, one after another, dust rising above the tree line. The main force. "Prokhorov, you see him?" "I hear him," the driver said, and for the first time in hours, there was something in his voice that wasn't just exhaustion. The column headed for the bridge. They made it. The column rumbled past them, tank after tank, vehicle after vehicle. They rumbled across the bridge that had been German an hour ago, and the roar of their engines merged into one continuous thrum that Sokolov felt in his chest, not his ears. The armor resonated. The ground shuddered under the treads. Sokolov stood on his tank's hull and watched the column. Not with pride. He was just watching, taking it in. His tank's gun barrel was smoking. Not much, just a thin wisp from the muzzle, nearly invisible against the summer sky. But it was there. The residual heat from 4 rounds fired at point-blank range. The metal cooled slowly. Batko had climbed out too and stood beside him. He watched the column. His face was a blank.
Just fatigue. So deep it was no longer an expression but a permanent feature.
"Look at 'em all," he said. It wasn't a question, just an observation. "Enough," Sokolov replied. The column had been rolling for several minutes. This wasn't just a battalion. This was the mechanized fist the Soviet command had slammed into the breach, and now it was punching deep into the German rear at a speed that neither side's headquarters could even process. German maps were becoming obsolete faster than they could update them. Soviet maps too, though here they called it something else. The offensive outstripping its own plan. Sokolov got it. He had seen this at Kursk, but there the Soviets were holding, not attacking. This was different. This was an avalanche that was generating its own momentum. Zuravlyov had climbed out of the turret and sat on the hull, legs dangling into the hatch. He'd taken his helmet off. His hair was matted with sweat. He looked at the river.
The water was dark, calm, indifferent to everything happening on its banks.
"I'd love a swim," he said.
After the war, Batko said.
"The war's a long way off." Prokhorov stayed inside. His shoulder was bandaged properly now. Batko had patched him up for real as soon as the lead elements of the column passed and it was clear there was no immediate threat. The bandage was holding. The bleeding had stopped. Prokhorov sat in his seat, staring through the vision slit at the road. Just staring. He couldn't leave. If they needed to move, he had to be at his post. Sokolov climbed down from the hull. He walked around the machine, the second time today, methodical as always. He checked the tracks. He checked the road wheels. He checked the armor. The left side of the turret, where the German shell hit, had a deep gouge. The metal hadn't breached, but it was deformed. A dent the size of a fist, jagged edges, paint stripped down to the bare steel. Sokolov rested his palm on the dent. The metal was still warm. It was the scar of a shell that didn't kill anyone. Almost.
He pulled his hand away. The glacis plate, scratches from shrapnel, a few small pits, nothing critical. The gun mantlet, good. Running gear, one road wheel on the right side was slightly deformed, probably from when they rammed the APC. It'll run, at least until the next fight. Sokolov logged it all in his head. Not on paper. Paper could wait. Right now, it was just the assessment. The machine was mobile. The gun was functional. The crew, 3 intact, 1 with a shoulder wound, still operational. That's called combat readiness. They had it. The last vehicle in the column cleared the bridge. The roar of the engines faded into the distance, out there, beyond the horizon, where German positions still existed and where the next battle would be in a few hours. The bridge went empty. The road was quiet again. Over the far bank, the dust kicked up by the column hung thick and reddish, settling slowly. On the armor of Sokolov's tank, a thin layer of that dust coated the soot. The hot steel took it in, and it stuck, mixing with engine oil, cordite residue, and the streaks from the rain 2 nights ago. These are the layers of war. Every day, a new layer. Batko looked at the German gear by the road. The APC in the ditch, the one Prokhorov had crushed. It was lying on its side, the right wheel still spinning slowly, inertia that no longer had a purpose. Nearby, an abandoned German machine gun, ammo crates, someone's helmet in the mud. "They left everything behind," Batko said. "The ones who ran are alive," Sokolov said. "The dead don't have anything to leave behind." It wasn't cruelty. It was a statement of fact. The German screen at the bridge did what it could, delayed them for a few minutes, inflicted 1 casualty. Then it fell apart. Because against a full crew in a combat-ready machine with initiative and speed,
An infantry screen only holds as long as the artillery allows. The artillery was suppressed. After that, it was just arithmetic.
Zhuravlyov climbed down from the hull. He walked to the river. The bank was shallow here, sloping right into the water. He leaned down, scooped up water in his palms. He washed his face, fast, hungrily. The water was freezing. He held his wet palms to his face for a few seconds, motionless. Sokolov watched him, but didn't stop him. 30 seconds. Then Zhuravlyov straightened up, wiped his face with his sleeve, walked back to the tank. "Better," he said. "I can see that." Batko headed to the river next. He drank straight from the stream, cupping his hands, quick, a few gulps. Sokolov watched him, wanted to say something about sanitary regulations, and kept his mouth shut. Regulations exist in another world. In this world, there's a river, the heat, empty canteens, and a man who hasn't had a drink in hours. Sokolov was the third to go to the river. He drank. The water tasted like silt and something bitter, maybe cordite runoff from the bank. He drank and didn't think about it. Prokhorov got a canteen full of water. Batko filled it for him and brought it to the hatch. "Here." "Thanks." 2 words. That's all that was needed. Sokolov went back to the tank. He looked at the dent in the armor one more time. Then at the gun barrel. It had stopped smoking, cooled down. Then at the road past the bridge, where the column went. Out there, ahead, German divisions were being ground into dust. Out there, Soviet tanks were hounding the enemy so fast that the concept of a front line was losing its meaning. Out there was the next objective, the next bridge, the next screen, and the order to go would be coming soon. Sokolov looked at his men. Zhuravlyov was sitting by the tracks, staring at the sky. Batko was going through the ammo racks, counting, checking. Prokhorov was inside, holding the canteen with his wounded hand, taking small sips. The dust from the column settled on the armor. On the horizon, smoke from burning German gear, a dark pillar that wouldn't dissipate.
The bridge was taken. The crossing was open. The price? 1 wound and a dent in the turret. By the standards of this offensive, it was cheap. There was no joy. Sokolov sat on the hull and ate. A piece of hardtack, hard as a board, with a tang of salt and something stale. The bread had dried out a long time ago, before the march even started. He chewed slowly because you couldn't rush it. His teeth couldn't keep up. There wasn't enough spit. Dehydration, even after the river. There was a ringing in his ears, a low, constant hum, like a taut wire that no one's touched but is still vibrating. It was from the gun. 4 rounds at point-blank range, and his eardrums were malfunctioning. Not deafness, not yet. Just a background noise that wouldn't turn off. Zhuravlyov sat nearby, holding his hardtack with both hands. He stared at it. He didn't eat, just held it, like he was studying it. "Is this it?" he asked. "That's it," Batko said. 3 pieces of hardtack. For 4 men. This wasn't a ration. It was the leftovers. The real rations were supposed to arrive yesterday. Bread, tinned meat, maybe even a hot meal from the field kitchen if they were lucky. It never came. Because a field kitchen physically cannot keep pace with an offensive. It moves on horse-drawn wagons or trucks over ruined roads, while the spearhead units are pushing 20, 25 miles a day, and that gap is only widening. The old man promised rations at the next objective, but the next objective is just another fight, another march, another hold the position. And there will be another promise for the objective after that. It was no one's fault. It was the geometry of the offensive. The faster the wedge moves, the longer the supply tail gets, and the thinner the thread carrying food, fuel, and ammo becomes. The thread doesn't snap. It just stretches to the breaking point, and at the end where the men are, it no longer feeds them. It just keeps them from dying. Prokhorov took his hardtack through the hatch. Batko handed it down to him. The driver ate inside, without climbing out. One arm in a sling, the other holding the bread, chewing. Behind him was the darkness of the fighting compartment, the smell of oil and cordite, and the heat of the scorched metal that still hadn't cooled. "They promised hot food," Zuravlyov said. Not angry, just saying it. "They promised a lot of things," Batko said. "I'm not complaining." "I know." Sokolov chewed his hardtack and watched the burning German gear. Out there, 500 yards up the road where the column split off, something big was smoldering. Not a tank, transport, a covered truck or something like it. The flames were low now, but the smoke was still pouring out. Thick, heavy black smoke that hung below the clouds and just sat there, refusing to drift away. In that smoke was someone else's life. German life. What was someone's gear this morning? Someone's papers? Someone's food? Now it was just burning. Sokolov didn't think about the people who lost it. It wasn't cruelty. It was economy. His head couldn't hold any extra thoughts. It was running on the bare minimum. The objective, the route, the crew, the ammo. Everything else was overboard. Had been for a long time. Batko finished his hardtack fast. Now he sat with empty hands, staring at the dirt. "I'm hungry," he says. "We all are," Sokolov says. "I get it." A pause. Just saying it out loud. Sokolov nodded. It was important, just to say it. Not as a complaint, not as a demand. Just to name what was there. The hunger, the exhaustion, the ringing in the ears. They don't go away if you stay quiet about them. But if you name them, it gets a little easier. By a fraction of an ounce, but easier. Zuravlyov finally took a bite of his hardtack. He chewed for a long time. "Remember how they fed us back near Smolensk?" he asked. "I don't," Batko said. "There was kasha, buckwheat, hot." "That was a lifetime ago. 2 months ago," Batko looked at him. 2 months is a different life. Zhuravlev chewed, nodded, didn't argue. Sokolov heard the conversation but didn't cut in. Men talking about food, it was normal. It was one of the ways the body copes with the lack of it, by imagining it, sifting through memories of taste, smell, warmth. It wasn't weakness, it was physiology. He found himself remembering, involuntarily for a split second, bread and butter. Just bread and butter. White bread, soft, and butter that melts instantly. Where he last ate that, he couldn't remember. Before the war, a long time ago. He shoved it out of his head, back to the present. The present was a burning German truck, 3 eaten pieces of hardtack, a wounded driver in the tank, and a ringing in his ears that wouldn't stop. "Batko," Sokolov said. "Yeah? How much water's left in the canteens?" Batko grabbed his canteen, shakes it. "Empty. I filled it from the river. Gave it to Prokhorov." "Zuravlyov?" "Half a canteen, also from the river." Sokolov nodded. River water isn't potable, strictly speaking. But the medic was in the rear. The rear was a long way off. "Don't drink anymore until the supply train catches up." "How long a wait?" Batko asked. "I don't know." A blunt answer. Sokolov didn't know when the supplies would get here. Maybe in an hour. Maybe tomorrow morning. The pace of the offensive suggested it would likely be tomorrow. Zuravlyov looked at the river. "There's water right there," he said.
There's water right there, Sokolov confirmed. For now, we hold out. Zuravlyov nodded. He turned away from the river. He looked the other way, at the road, the dust, the horizon where the column vanished. They're eating right now, he said. Who? The guys in the rear. The brass. Sokolov looked at him. Zuravlyov said it without any bitterness, just as a fact.
Out there, 30 miles back, where the headquarters and the supply units had set up, there were field kitchens. There was hot food. There was a chance to sleep on a cot instead of on the ground under a tarp. Probably, Sokolov said. Right, Zuravlyov said, and he didn't bring it up again. That was a skill in itself, knowing how to say fine and letting the matter drop. No resentment, no pent-up anger, simply a fact stated, accepted, and set aside. Next, the job. Prokhorov knocks on the bulkhead from the inside. Sokolov leans toward the hatch. What is it? Static on the radio, the driver says. Someone's trying to zero in on our channel. I can't make it out, too much interference. Sokolov climbs into the turret and pulls on his headset. He listens. Static. Fragments. Then, a voice, distant and distorted, but recognizable. The RTO from Battalion HQ. Sokolov strains to hear. Words emerge through the interference slowly, like letters wiped clean through grime. A new order.
The voice on the radio is brief. Forward. The next objective is the high ground, marked near the road to the northeast. Hold until the infantry arrives. Departure time, immediate. Sokolov takes off the headset. He looks at the instrument panel in front of Prokhorov. Gauges. Fuel level, 1/3 of a tank. Oil, good. Engine temperature, high but within limits. You hear that? He asks Prokhorov. I heard. Can your hand hold the lever? Prokhorov squeezes the right steering lever, releases it, squeezes again. It holds. Sokolov climbs out of the turret. Batko and Zuravlyov look up at him from the ground where they had been sitting. Orders are in, Sokolov says. We're moving out. Zuravlyov stands up without a word. Batko follows suit. No questions, no grumbling. They stopped asking questions at moving out a long time ago. They just get up and head for the machine. Sokolov looks at the road, then back at the bridge, then forward again. Right behind the line of German positions they bypassed 2 hours ago, there is movement. Sokolov doesn't notice it immediately. A truck, then a second, then a low-slung vehicle with an antenna. It's not a column. It's a mobile repair unit. They are moving along the road, stopping at every damaged vehicle, assessing, deciding, can it be fixed here or must it be towed to the rear? Hold up, Sokolov says. Batko looks back. Maintenance, Sokolov says. Zhuravlyov, flag them down. Tell them about the turret. Zhuravlyov waves his hand. 2 men in greasy coveralls jump out of the truck. They walk toward the tank. Fast, businesslike, no wasted words. They look at the dent in the side of the turret. One of them runs his hands over the metal, assessing the deformation, checking if the integrity is compromised. We'll weld it, he says, curt. How fast? Sokolov asks. 15 minutes. Sokolov looks at his watch, looks at the road ahead. 15 minutes is a risk. The order said immediate. But the dent in the turret is a weak spot. If the Germans hit the same spot again, the armor might not hold a second time. Weld it. The repairmen deploy their gear in 3 minutes. The welding rig on the truck chugs, a puny sound, almost ridiculous next to the roar of the guns still ringing in their ears. Masks go down. The arc flashes. Sokolov steps aside. He looks at his men. Batko has sat down by the tracks, back against the armor, knees pulled to his chest. He's closed his eyes. He's not sleeping. He's breathing.
just breathing, deep and slow, like he was taught in some pre-war PT class he probably doesn't even really remember. His body found the rhythm on its own. Zhuravlyov stands near the repairman, watching the welding. The bluish light of the arc reflects in his eyes. He's doing nothing, just standing and staring at the fire. That's also a way to survive. Find something to look at and think about nothing. Prokhorov pokes his head out of the driver's hatch. Slowly, carefully, his bad shoulder won't let him move freely. He climbs out and sits on the hull.
They said 15 minutes, Sokolov says.
I hear you, Prokhorov says. He looks at his bandaged hand. The bandage is darkened, not from fresh blood, but from dirt and engine oil. The bleeding stopped back at the river. The wound stings, but it's bearable. He moves his fingers one by one, checking. All 5 work. You'll live, Batko says, without opening his eyes. I'm living already, Prokhorov says. That's humor. Not funny, just humor, because there are no other words, and silence is heavier than saying anything at all. Artillery is pounding somewhere far off, dull thuds behind the horizon, one after another, at regular intervals. It's friendly artillery. Sokolov recognizes the rhythm. The German batteries hit differently, sharper, with distinct pauses between salvos. Ours works methodically, like a hammer. That means the front has shifted there, forward, to where they have to go now. One of the repairmen steps away from the turret. He lifts his mask. Done! 12 minutes. Faster than promised. Sokolov looks at the seam.
Rough, raised, ugly. This isn't a factory job. It's field work under the distant thunder of artillery. But the metal has taken. The dent is reinforced from the inside with a backing plate. Now this spot is stronger than the surrounding sections. The paradox of field repairs. Thanks, Sokolov says. The repairman is already walking back to the truck. He doesn't look back. No time. Sokolov watches them, how they load up, how the truck starts and drives further along the road toward the next knocked-out vehicle. These men are working 100 meters from where a battle raged an hour ago. They work fast, silently, without stopping, because no one is waiting for them either. The column moved on, leaving a trail of damaged machines behind, and the repairmen follow that trail like medics on a battlefield. It's an assembly line, not a heroic one, just an assembly line. A machine breaks, it gets fixed, the machine moves on. A man is wounded, he gets bandaged, the man works.
Everything that goes out of commission either returns or is written off. No pauses, no gaps. Mount up, Sokolov says. Batko opens his eyes, stands up, climbs into the turret. Zhuravlyov tears himself away from contemplating the weld, climbs in after him. Prokhorov carefully lowers himself from the hull, bad shoulder first so as not to snag it on the way down. He slides into the driver's hatch. Sokolov is the last one. He looks at the road one more time, at the bridge behind, at the dust ahead, at the smoke from German equipment slowly dissipating over the field. Somewhere out there, beyond the horizon, Soviet units are grinding down German divisions. It's not a metaphor. It's a real process, with real casualties on both sides. The maps in the headquarters of German Army Group Center no longer reflect reality. In a few days of the offensive, Soviet troops have pushed into areas where German planners didn't expect a breakthrough for weeks. It's a shock. Such a shock that German commanders report figures to HQ that HQ doesn't believe and demands they double-check. There's no one left to double-check. Sokolov climbs into the turret, closes the hatch. Prokhorov, crank it. The engine catches on the first try. The RPMs climb. The tank shudders. A fine vibration, familiar, almost soothing. It's a working machine. That means we're moving. Zhuravlyov, load AP. Already on it, Zhuravlyov says. The clang of the breech follows. Batko, report remaining. 26 HE, 12 AP. 38 shells. To the high ground, unknown kilometers, unknown what's waiting there. Maybe nothing. Maybe not. Forward. The machine moves. It pulls onto the road and picks up speed. Behind them remain the bridge, the weld on the turret, 3 eaten crackers, and a dent that is no more. Ahead, dust, the thunder of artillery, and the next order already waiting for them at the other end of the road. The assembly line doesn't stop.
The hill greets them with silence. Not a peaceful silence, a military one. The kind where you can hear everything, the wind in the grass, the distant artillery thunder over the horizon, the beat of your own heart. The kind that doesn't mean peace, but a pause between one thing and the next. Prokhorov stops the machine on the crest. The engine idles, quiet, almost inaudible after marching RPMs. Sokolov opens the hatch. He stands waist-deep in the turret. He looks. A field, a gentle slope downward. The road veers right, skirts a grove, and disappears. Where it disappears, smoke. Not black, not from vehicles. Gray, from something wooden. A village or a farmstead. It was a farmstead. There are no Germans on the hill. They left, didn't have time to dig in, or decided not to hold it. On the ground, traces, cigarette butts, a tin can with German markings, flattened grass where a gun had stood. They left recently, maybe an hour ago, maybe less.
Clear, Sokolov says.
Clear for now,
Zhuravlyov says from below.
Correction accepted.
Sokolov sits back down. He closes the hatch halfway so he can get out fast, but his head is covered. Prokhorov, position us behind the crest. Turret just above the line. Go hull down. Copy. The machine reverses. 3 meters, no more. Now only the gun barrel and the commander's cupola are visible from the field. It's a hull-down position. Not perfect, but enough for the weight. Waiting is a skill all its own. Not everyone possesses it. The young ones usually can't. The body demands movement, the head demands action. Veterans know how to stop and just exist. Breathe, listen, wait, without wasting a single movement. Batko doesn't know how. He fidgets in his seat, rearranges shells in the stowage that are already sitting right, looks into the darkness of the fighting compartment, then at Zhuravlyov, then back at the shells. Stop, Zhuravlyov says. Batko stops. Sit quiet. I'm sitting. Silence. Prokhorov breathes steadily.
Hand on the lever. Not pressing, just holding. A driver's habit. As long as the engine is running, the hand is on the lever. Even at a standstill. Even in his sleep, probably, if you let him. Sokolov looks through the periscope. The field below, empty. The road, empty. The grove, motionless. The horizon to the right, where the column went. Dust and smoke that speak of movement, but don't say what that movement means right now. He thinks about the hill, about why they were ordered to hold it. It's not just a dot on a map. It's an observation post and a firing position at the same time. From the crest, the road is visible for 3 kilometers in both directions. If the Germans want to counterattack along this axis, they'll come down this road, because to the right is a swamp, to the left is a forest, and there is no other way. And then this hill will become the thing that stops them. Or doesn't stop them if there's only one tank on the hill. 1 tank, 38 shells,
a wounded driver, a crew that hasn't slept in 4 days.
Sokolov calculates this not with despair, but with cold precision. This is a resource, a finite resource. The infantry is supposed to come. The CO said, until the infantry arrives. The question is, when? And the question that has no answer, will the Germans get here first? Lieutenant, Prokhorov says. What? We're burning fuel at idle. Kill it? Sokolov thinks for a second. No. If they come, we won't have time to crank it. Understood. Idle RPMs and fuel. That's another counter. Another number going down. But a cold engine at the moment of contact, that's 30 seconds to start that they might not have. Zuravlyov opens his hatch, carefully, just a few centimeters. He listens, closes it. Quiet, he reports. I hear it. Minutes pass. Sokolov doesn't count them. He just feels them slipping away. 5, 10, 15. The field doesn't change. The road is empty. The artillery over the horizon hits less frequently. Maybe they've shifted firing positions. Maybe it's a pause before the next salvo. Batko isn't fidgeting anymore. He's found something to do. He's looking at the weld on the inside of the turret, the one the repairmen put on. Rough. The metal laid down unevenly, frozen in lumps. Batko runs his finger over it slowly, as if he's reading something from it. Strong, he says finally. Should be, Zuravlyov says. Prokhorov coughs, once, dryly, clears his throat. What day is it now? He asks. No one answers immediately. The 4th, Batko says. The 4th, Prokhorov repeats. Not a statement and not a question, just a word he rolls around in his mouth, checking its weight. 4 days and nights. Sokolov knows this for sure, not because he counted, but because he remembers every spot where they stopped. The first halt was at the burned-out farmstead. The second day. A march through the swamp corduroy road, the third. 2 battles in a row without a break. The 4th. Today. The bridge. The hill. The crackers. 4 days is a threshold. Beyond it, the organism starts shutting down the secondary and holding only the essential. Fine motor skills drop. Peripheral vision narrows. The voice becomes flat. Not because of calmness, but because intonations require energy that isn't there. This has already happened to the crew. Sokolov sees it in the way they move. Precisely. Without wasted gestures. Without fuss. Fatigue has stripped away everything non-essential. Only what works remains. Static on the radio. Then a voice. Not the CO, a different call sign from a neighboring sector. Attention all units. Enemy column movement spotted. Direction northeast. Estimated armor and motorized infantry. Distance 7 kilometers. Sokolov straightens up in the turret. Zuravlyov, load. Loaded. Batko, mind the rack. First 4 AP, ready to hand. On it. Prokhorov, how's the shoulder? I'm holding. It's not a question about his well-being. It's a question about combat readiness. The answer, I'm holding, means I'm working. That's enough. 7 kilometers. At column march speed, 20 minutes, maybe less. The infantry hasn't arrived yet. The radios are silent. None of our guys are on the slope. 1 tank on a crest against an armored column. That's not a battle. It's a position that needs to be held exactly as long as it takes for the others to arrive. Sokolov looks through the periscope. The road below is still empty, but now this emptiness is different. Not peaceful, but tense, like the silence before a shot. Don't fire without my command, Sokolov says. We wait. If they come, let them get within 400. Silence. Copy, Zhuravlyov says. Copy, Batko says. Copy, Prokhorov says. 4 men, a machine, a crest of a hill, an empty road below. Sokolov looks at that road and thinks one thing. The infantry has to make it. The infantry made it. They came from the left flank, scattered, fast, hunched over like people who learned long ago how to move under fire.
Not running, a fast walk, that specific infantryman's stride that is only formally not a run. A platoon, maybe 2 understrength platoons. Sokolov counts them through the periscope and stops counting. It's enough. There are men, there is a position, there is a chance to hold the hill. The German column never did come out onto the road. Maybe they received a different order. Maybe reconnaissance reported the occupied hill and the commander decided to bypass. Maybe artillery caught them before they reached the open. Sokolov will never know. War rarely explains why the thing you expected didn't happen. It just didn't happen. Accept it and move on. An infantry lieutenant approaches the tank. Young, younger than Sokolov, though Sokolov himself is 26. His face is a mask of gray exhaustion, his tunic caked in mud to the knees. They came through the lowlands by the look of it. "You holding the hill?" he asks. "We're holding it," Sokolov says.
Good. The lieutenant looks at the field below, at the road. Germans? 7 kilometers, last report, an hour ago. Means they're closer now. Means they're closer now, Sokolov agrees. They look down together for a few seconds. Then the infantry lieutenant goes back to his men, positioning them along the crest. Sokolov watches him go. This conversation will take up half a page in someone's post-war memoir. In reality, it took 30 seconds. A voice on the radio, the CO. Sokolov listens. A new order. Not to hold the hill. To move north. Support the attack on a strongpoint near the village. The infantry stays on the hill. The tank, forward. Forward again. Sokolov pulls off the headset. He looks at his hands. His own hands, holding the headset. The fingers aren't shaking. The hands look normal. Only the skin on the knuckles is cracked from the alternating cold and heat, and under the nails is a blackness that won't wash off anymore. He puts the headset back on. Prokhorov orders, north, village near the strong point. Far? They didn't say. Prokhorov is silent for a second. Got enough fuel for maybe 30 kilometers. After that, we're on fumes. Understood. It's a problem that can't be solved right now. Either a fuel truck will meet them, or they'll limp along on what's left. There is no third option. Crank it. The engine shifts from idle to working RPMs. The machine moves. The infantry lieutenant turns around, watches the tank leave the hill. He doesn't wave, he just watches. Sokolov doesn't see him. He's already looking ahead. The road north goes through a field, then dives into a hollow, where the grass is darker and taller, meaning it's wet, meaning Prokhorov will have to keep his speed up so they don't get bogged down. Then, back up the slope. Sokolov reads the terrain through the periscope automatically, without thinking about it consciously. It's no longer a skill, it's part of his perception. Batko sits by the breach. He looks at the ammo rack. 26 shells. There were 38 before the last wait on the hill, but he recounted, and 26 is the right number. Wait, they didn't fire on the hill. 38, he recounts again. 38, he says aloud. What? Zhuravlyov calls back. Shells. I made a mistake. 38. Good. It's a small thing, but important. Fatigue does exactly that. It inserts errors into simple operations. A recount that in a normal state takes 5 seconds and always gives the right result now requires 2 attempts. It's not a catastrophe. It's a signal. Double-check every action. The machine enters the hollow. Grass whips against the sides, tall, man-high, damp. The tracks crush it and move on. The ground holds, not a swamp, just a wet meadow. Prokhorov gives it a bit more throttle to keep the momentum. Sokolov thinks about what will happen after. Not after this battle, after the war. He hasn't thought about it in a long time.
Not because he didn't want to. There just wasn't room in his head. Now, in the monotonous movement through the meadow, the thought comes on its own, uninvited. After the war, those who make it to the end will return. Home, to cities and villages, to families, or to empty apartments. They will sit at tables and eat hot food, real food, not out of tin cans. They will sleep in beds. They will talk to people who haven't seen what they've seen. And that's when the other thing will begin. Zhuravlyov will go deaf. Not completely, but his left ear already hears worse than his right. Every shot from an 85mm gun is a pressure wave that destroys the hair cells of the inner ear. They don't grow back. Ever. By the end of the war, if Zhuravlyov survives, he'll be asking people to repeat themselves in quiet rooms and wincing at loud noises. Prokhorov will wake up at night to the sound of an engine that isn't there. His body will remember the vibration of a driver, remember the levers, remember how the ground feels through the hull of the machine. That won't leave him anytime soon. Maybe never. Batko, young Batko, who is 21, will return home with something for which there is no word in 1944. Later they will name it, give it a term, describe the symptoms. But in 44, it's just called shell-shocked or jittery, and people look at men like that with awkwardness, not knowing what to say. Sokolov knows all this, not with his mind, but with his body. He feels how every battle leaves something inside. Not a wound, a residue. That doesn't wash away, doesn't pass, just accumulates. Village, Prokhorov says. Sokolov looks through the periscope. Yes. Roofs above a line of trees. Smoke, not a house fire, the smoke of battle, sparse in several places at once. There is work going on there. Someone is already fighting there. Without them. Without their gun. At the limit of what infantry can do without armor. Zhuravlyov.
You see the village?
I see it. First shot, at any firing point you spot on the approach. Don't wait for the command. Copy. Batko, alternate. A-P-H-E-H-E, until I say otherwise. On it. Prokhorov, keep your speed. Don't stop. I'm holding it. The machine comes out of the hollow onto firm ground. Speed builds. The village draws closer. Roofs become distinct. Then walls are visible. Then movement near the edge houses. They are shooting there. They are shooting at them from there. Bullets against the armor. Again that same rattling patter. Again, peas on a tin can. Again, adrenaline from reserves that are almost gone. Zhuravlyov fires. And again, the roar, the smoke, the clang of the casing. Again, Batko with a new shell. Again, forward. This isn't a feat of valor. This isn't heroism. This is a job.
driven to automation by 4 days without sleep, dozens of kilometers of marching, and several battles that have merged into one continuous event.
This is what the Soviet tank school created and honed through losses, through burning machines, through dead crews, until those who remained alive became exactly this. Not heroes, professionals. Men who do their job when doing it is already physically impossible. The summer of '44 will grind down the German armies. It will liberate Belarus, reach the borders. Those who make it will return with lost hearing, with shattered sleep, with a residue inside that won't be called by the right word for a long time. But the bridge will be taken. The hill will hold. The village will be liberated. The gun fires again. The machine moves forward.